The content presented in this podcast and YouTube show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health or a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or seen on this show. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guest, and producers of this show are not responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information presented.
Andrea, can you hear us?
Many years ago, I died for 26 seconds. There are so many people in this world that have experienced life events that have led to their soul purpose. Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea will bring you these significant life events that demonstrate how to use those moments for guidance and life purpose. These are our stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea Lynn. Today's special guest is here to talk to us about how to have success. So let's welcome Matt Harris. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Hello, Andrea, and everybody who's watching. Hi.
So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that Matt's title says he is a Pearl expert. So we were talking before the episode, and we've decided that we're going to do a little giveaway for any of the viewers here on YouTube. It would help us with the giveaway if you could engage in the comments and let us know one thing that you've always wondered about Pearl. So we're going to start with a little bit of a backstory on Matt before we dive into his celebrity life of being a celebrity designer. This is one of my favorite stories. So let's go back and start this story with the time where Matt was working at Dillard's and he made a big pivot with a big leap of faith as well. Tell us about it.
I told Andrea the story, I think, twice now, and I think that's why she's bringing it up. In talking about success, it all flows into the idea that there's a few things. Don't take no for an answer necessarily. And number
Yes.
two, life is the way you perceive things. So it's not like what happens to you, it's how you deal with what happens to you. And I think the one you're talking about is when I was working at Dillard's Shoes, lady
Shoe
shoes,
department.
right, in Vegas on the Strip, the Fashion Show Mall. It's still there if you guys want to go.
Yeah.
And I was selling these expensive shoes to these ladies that were buying them all the time. And there's three ladies in particular, Betty, Susan, and Vicky, that used to always come into the store and buy these expensive shoes over and over again. So I remember asking Betty one day, I said, well, what is it that you do that you can afford to buy such expensive shoes all the time? She says, I work upstairs at the art gallery. And then I asked Vicky, same thing, upstairs at the art gallery. Betty, I work upstairs at the art gallery. So I thought, I need a job at the art gallery upstairs, right? I was 18 or 19. And so I walked up to the art gallery and I went inside, and there's a guy named Greg that happened to be standing there. And I said, can I talk to the manager? He was the manager. And I said, I'd like to work here at the art gallery. And he said, oh, okay. Do you have an art history degree? I'm like, nope. He says, well, do you have sales experience? I'm like, I sell lady shoes downstairs at Dillard's. He goes, all right, well, what other sales experience do you have? I'm like, dude, I'm like 18. I have a lot of sales experience. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, but we need somebody with experience that you're just not the right fit. Oh, he also said, do you know anything about the art? And he pointed around. I'm like, nothing. That one cool up there. I like that. So I went downstairs, and I tell the story a lot when I'm speaking because it is a great example of how I could have stopped. And most people would just perceive that event as, well, it didn't work for me. Or even if you look at the bright side, right, the silver lining, I could have said, it wasn't the right time, or there's a better opportunity that's going to come my way later. I could have made up all sorts of things, but I really wanted the job at the art gallery. And I realized that I'm just going to perceive this in a different way, that a no in this case is not yet, and that I just need to change my strategy. So instead of just working at the shoe store more, looking for another job, I went back up there. Must have been like the next day or two. And I found Greg and I said, "Hey, Greg, I have an idea. I have a vacation coming up at Dillard's in a few weeks. Why don't I take the week and I'll just work here for free? And if you like me at the end of it, then you can keep me. And if not, then no harm done. And we'll just see what happens." And he said yes. And that's what opened that door for me. Not only that, but it opened in my mind the idea that there can be any outcome that you want, and don't be satisfied with an outcome that you think was laid in front of you, when you can actually create your own events and your own outcome. And I've tried to take that through everything and applied it and have a lot of fun with it as much as I can. And sure enough, I got the job. I sold it was like $6,000 or $8,000 the first day, and maybe $5,000 the next day. I ended up keeping the job. They offered me the job at the end of the week, and I won the sales contest for the first month, beating all the old salespeople there and winning a trip to Paris. They happened to have a contest that much. So my first month, I got the job and I won a trip to Paris. It was amazing. And it started the rest of my career. It's interesting to think of what life would be like if that wouldn't have happened. And what,
Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing story, and I think it starts with curiosity, right? Like, you saw these women buying expensive shoes and you thought, "Well, I want that. How do I get that?" You were curious, and so you were able to get there by asking them how they got there in the first place, and so I think that's key for people, is to not be afraid as well, and be curious, and ask people that are living the life that you want to live how they got there. People are often more willing to share than you think.
good point.
Yeah, a lot of people want their success for others as well. And especially people that are really successful, they've worked really hard to get there. And sure, there's some that are going to gatekeep their secrets, but then there's other people that they can appreciate your tenacity in life and desire to get where they are. And they're like, "I've been there. I get how hard it is. Let me help you because I see that you're trying and you have the desire and you're asking and you're trying." And I think people often hold themselves back from reaching out to people that are super successful, thinking that they're not going to help. But I think a lot of people with success do want to help. We're all in this together and we want to share our secret.
I think I probably spend half my time now trying to help other people. And then what happens, the universe kind of brings the help to you, and it all kind of works out. And, I didn't want to wear the shoes, of course, that they were wearing. I wanted the income, but, Christian Louboutin wasn't around back then. There was brands like Bandolino. I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody's watching this that knows Bandolino, but that was considered like a really expensive shoe.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. I ended up rooming with Vicky, by the way, and it turns out her last name was Harris. And she had this house and she rented a room. And it was really funny because my dad would visit and he was convinced that we got married, and she took my name and that I just didn't want anybody in the family to know about it. So it was wild. It just went on and on.
I know you didn't want their shoes, but you
I just-
wanted,
Yeah.
you wanted the success that was putting those shoes on their feet. So, yeah.
Right.
Matt, remind me, was it the story with your dad where you went to that conference with your dad? You were what, like 13 or so?
Yeah, I think it must have been 7th grade or so, around that.
'Cause
Wow.
that was kind of the story I think you were sharing that kind of set the stage for,
All of that.
for you
The mindset.
mentally. Yeah, the mindset. Can
Yeah,
you share
every
that
time I
story?
talk to Andrea, I realize that I've had conversations with her before, and she has a way of pulling it all out. I've told you everything. So yes, my dad worked for IBM. It was in Tucson, Arizona, and there was a Saturday, and we must have been talking about what everybody's doing for the day or the night before, maybe. And he had this weekend sort of retreat thing that he was supposed to go to, but he didn't want to go. And he was telling me about it. And yes, believe it or not, like 7th or 8th grade, somewhere in there, I said, "Well, why don't I go for you?" And he said, yes. So he and my mom drive me down to IBM, and they drop me off, and there's this like big conference room of people, and it's all like the IBM execs and whatnot. And there's me, and I sit down, and it was a fascinating day. Can I tell the story real quick?
Absolutely.
What
Go for it.
happened there? So
Yeah.
I don't remember really anything except this one thing that influenced the rest of my life. And it was a guy that was giving this presentation, and he was a hypnotist. And he asked a man to volunteer from the audience, and the man came up, and the hypnotist said, hold on, let me look for my lucky. Here it is. I have my pearl mug.
Cute.
So imagine this on the desk, and the hypnotist went to the guy and hypnotized him. Well, first he said, sir, I'd like you to pick up that cup of coffee. So the guy lifted up the cup of coffee, put it back down. So then he hypnotized this guy, and he said, now that cup of coffee is 500 pounds. And the guy's like, okay. And he said, I would like you to lift that cup of coffee. And he said, well, I can't. It's 500 pounds. He said, I'd like you to just try. And so the guy puts his hand on there. He's like, I can't lift it. It's too heavy. He said, but I really want you just like with all your effort, try. And I remember seeing this guy pick it up with both hands, and his muscles and his arms were contracting. And he was like visibly like in pain trying to pick this thing up. And he couldn't pick the mug up off of the table. And they didn't need to go any further with me because I got it, what he was trying to say. And there's a saying that I say all the time that I realized it that day: argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. So the minute you say you can't do something, you're not going to be able to do it. And that showed me the brain power of the mug. If I'm going to say it's 500 pounds, then of course I'm not going to be able to pick it up. But if I'm going to say it's an ounce, I'll be able to pick it up. Take it to the shoe story. If I would have said, well, I'm not qualified for the job,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get the job. But instead, my brain was like, okay, there's another way that I can get the job. And the most amazing thing about that story with the mug is that if you take it a step further, instead of just argue for your limitations, sure enough, they're yours. What if you looked at everything that people think you can't do and realized that an opposite reality exists, and that means that you can? So that guy just changed his reality from I can to I can't. So most people start with the can to can't, but what if then you took a look at everything that would start with a can't and realize, well, maybe there's a can. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think if you think about the brain, as soon as you tell yourself you can't do something, what does the brain do? Like it naturally is like, okay, done. Right? Like it's not trying for more. But if you
Mhm.
tell, which is a little bit opposite of what you're saying, but I do understand what you're saying. But if you also say, I can do this, the brain immediately believes you can, and it's looking for ways to make it happen. But I also can understand what you're saying. If you look at all your I can'ts, you can also use that as a motivator to figure out all the ways that you can. And that's also a training thing too, right? You can start training your brain that like every time you get into this I can't mode, how can I? How can I? But I also think
Or
what
even don't start with the I can't at all. I get asked all the time. So I had these like really cool wins. I designed jewelry pearls for Britney Spears and Debra Messing, for example. And people always are really excited about Britney. Like, how did you get Britney to wear your stuff? And my answer is I asked. And I just, on all this stuff, I asked. It was it. And people tend to think, well, but they could never do this, or I could never be the same or achieve the same success as this person I see on Instagram all the time, or the people that have already done it. And they start, well, they don't even start because they don't realize that they can just ask to begin with. It was not a possibility for me. I never even thought once that Britney wouldn't wear jewelry, or that it never even occurred to me not to ask,
Yeah.
because I just thought that'd be really cool to see my stuff on Britney. And so I asked. And if you kind of live life that way, just knowing kind of what your goals are, or what your vision and what you want, and you become the person that already has accepted that that is happening and can happen for you, then you walk differently, you talk differently, you start asking for things that your brain otherwise would have said, well, that's crazy, you can't ask for that. And things change. It's like visualization. I think I've even been to maybe a session or two to you where we closed our eyes and envisioned us in the future and put ourselves where
Probably,
we
yeah.
want to be.
Long conversations.
Yeah, doing the thing. And, part of that visualization that works is that when you open your eyes and you've seen yourself there, then now your brain's thinking, absolutely, not only can I, but I've been there already. And everything starts changing.
Yeah. I all of this reminds me of, it takes me back to my childhood. And it's interesting how you're saying this event at IBM, it shaped you. It was, a childhood event that it really shaped your mindset. And it was, I don't know why this moment sticks out for me, but it does. When I was a kid, I was kind of shy for a period of time. And I remember my parents would always introduce me, and my dad would want me to shake someone's hand. And like, I didn't want to do that. But I did. Like, I wanted to, but I was too scared. And then one time I remember telling myself, like, just do it. Like, see what happens. Just stick your hand out and shake the man's hand. And so I remember doing it. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I survived. And I know this sounds silly, but I was so fearful as a kid to shake someone's hand. And I remember doing it. And it was like, I realized I could do it. And it was kind of that moment of realizing I can push through things, and also asking myself, well, like, what's the worst that's going to happen here? And like your story with Britney Spears. So I ended up in People magazine in a picture with Brad Pitt. And it was because I was doing this modeling job at Laguna Seca. And I was with a few other models, and they really wanted a picture with Brad Pitt. I actually have never been somebody that's like, oh my God, to me, a
Yeah,
person,
yeah. Sure, sure.
celebrity, they're
Yeah.
just a person. It's just their job. And I don't like die for a photograph. So, anyways, these other girls really, really wanted it. And I'm like, well, you guys want a picture? And they're like, yeah. I said, well, let's ask. I'll just ask. And so I just went over there and I just asked him. And he was like, well, what's an umbrella girl? Because we were there as umbrella girls at Laguna Seca for Yamaha. And so told him. And then I don't know, I think he had to talk to a person that he was with. And then sure enough, a picture was taken. And then my agent called me, I think, I don't even know, maybe a week or two later, and was like, did you know you're in People magazine? So it
How
was,
about that?
yeah. So
Hey,
it was,
wait a minute though, you guys that are watching this or listening, I'm not the only one. What is an umbrella girl?
what is an
I mean, I
umbrella?
could guess, but what's an umbrella girl? Do you hold umbrellas over
Yes,
on
you literally hold the umbrella over the guy on the motorcycle before they take off for their race.
I didn't know there was such a thing, huh?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I learned some.
Yeah, we were supposed to do it on roller skates, but
Oh my
not
goodness.
that was
That
not
just
an ability I
Alright.
tried. Oh my gosh, there were other people, other famous people there too that we were hanging out with, and yeah, I was kind of mortified trying to skate in front of Matt LeBlanc from Friends, and I was just like, I can't do this. He was the
Oh
sweetest,
my
but
gosh. I
yeah.
actually had a job once that you don't know this about me, that I was taking Courtney Cox from Friends around the country doing store openings, ribbon cuttings for
Oh,
one of her
fun.
stores. Yeah, so I got to know her a little bit from the
That's
Friends
fun.
back when Friends was a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay, guys that support me on this though, am I the only one that didn't know what an umbrella girl is? Not. So back me up, please, if you didn't know. So like make me feel better.
Well, in all fairness, I didn't know either until I got assigned to the job. So, yeah. So, Matt, I would love it too if you could tell us about, this is more recent, but I know in the past year you were on TV and you were selling pearls on a TV network.
Mhm.
How did you get that job? Because I want you to share with people just how you've had so many different successes. And I think it's just really cool because you've had to make pivots, right? It's if you would have just stayed at the art, you could have just stayed at the art gallery, right? But you've just continued to pivot and grow and grow. And for me, that's what this channel is about, is helping people realize that any dreams that they have are totally attainable, and they don't have to just stay where they're at in their life. So if they're feeling like, okay, this just isn't quite what I wanted out of my life, all right, well, go get it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So we're talking about the TV show. We'll wrap that up into other stuff. Of course, I'm a Pearl guy, so I have a saying. It's on this poster behind me. The world is your oyster, of course, in my wine collection there.
Yeah.
So the world is your oyster. And that's what I learned through the IBM experience and through getting that job, with Greg at the art gallery, and on and on and on and on and over again. And I'll bet you all of you guys that are listening to this now can answer how I got the TV gig I asked. So I knew I wanted to be, without getting it too long a story, 2 years ago, I was not doing pearls. And it's always been a fire growing inside me. My passion of the last 20 years has been, I love pearls, but I never did it as work. So I made the decision. It was actually 2 years ago, 2 years and 5 days ago. to quit
Mhm.
my job and go all in on being a pearl designer and a pearl expert, but I was completely unknown in the pearl world. And I closed my eyes and I saw myself out in the future as being a pearl expert and being recognized by my peers, being trusted by customers, and doing the thing. And I opened my eyes and I put myself mentally immediately, that's 2 years and 5 days ago. I put myself into the spot and everything changed about me. So I wasn't going to be the pearl guy. I became the pearl guy, like right at that moment. I started asking for things that otherwise my brain probably would have said, don't ask for it, or you can't do this, or you're not experienced enough, or build this first, or get the website first, or all the things that you guys that are listening probably go through in your mind, how it's not the right time. It never is the
Mhm.
right time. So with the TV show in particular, I was at a networking group event here in Austin, Texas, and it was all jewelry related. And I was, again, designing pearl jewelry. It was the Women's Jewelry Association. And I met a girl there. And as I do with all the networking events, you see what people do. Hey, what do you do? What do you do? And she said that she is in charge of talent for a home shopping network called Shop LCTV. And it was in the next town over. So my brain immediately just thought this: hey, I'll tell you what, why don't I come on the network and sell pearls for you? I can be like your pearl expert host.
Mhm.
And her thought, she's like, that's actually a really good idea. And that's how it started. And we just followed up and it happened.
Yeah,
So,
I actually I did watch when you were on, and
oh, you did. It's great.
I did. I actually really loved it because it was you weren't just selling the jewelry, you were sharing a story about pearls too, and I
Mhm.
just thought it was really fun to learn about pearls as well. So I did tune in. But Matt, I'm curious, with all of these life moments where you've been able to make these pivots or just ask, did you also have a sense or knowing that this was just kind of where you were meant to be or what you were supposed to be doing with your life? Can you talk about your intuition playing into any of this, if it did?
I- My first thought to that is that I don't think it did.
Okay, that's
So
fair.
I went from being a conductor at the University of Las Vegas, like right out of high school, to selling the lady shoes like immediately, over to the art galleries. Then I went to Rodeo Drive to work in an art gallery there for a bit, to starting a software company, which I ran for quite a while, and to a wine distribution business.
Mm.
And I even bought some land. I was going to build a winery on in Napa Valley, but never really did that. That's actually a really bad financial decision.
Yeah.
So thank God I didn't actually do it. So I think my only intuition was this: I'm going to take it back to the day that I left my job in high school to go to college. I was working at a stationery store in the mall, Tucson Mall. And this will all make sense in a minute. And
Okay.
they had a tradition that you would write on the wall in the back stock room a message on your way out when you left and quit your job. And I remember exactly what I wrote. I wrote, "You can never go everywhere, meet everybody, or experience everything, but you can sure as hell try."
Mhm.
I think if you call that intuition, I don't know if that's really intuition, but I think that's my guiding thought through life, is
Mhm.
that why not have fun with it? We're only here once. And
Mhm.
I just wasn't interested necessarily in just doing the one thing and sticking with the one thing. I tend to have an interest over here and over there and over there. And I just wanted to experience life. So my motivation through all those pivots was probably just recognizing potential opportunities and thinking they sounded fun
Yeah.
and going where the fun is. And when it came down to pearls, though, it was a little bit different
Mhm.
because I would turn 50 and I was having all this fun. And I really been so thankful with life and all these neat things I've been able to do. But now it was different because I was, at the time, I took over a store, a retail store here in Texas. But I didn't own it. I was just the manager, and we were doing great. And I was in a 50-50 profit share. So I was making great money. But then I had the realization that I'm in my 50s and I don't want to die. I don't want to die a good manager. I
Mhm.
want to make a mark. And I
Mhm.
didn't think I've left a mark. And I want my daughter to be able to say later on, "Hey, my dad did that." And I had this passion of pearls for 20 years that I've always been interested in them. I've always played around with making some pearl jewelry, gone to trade shows and learned about them, read about them. But finally, it was time to put, I can't believe I didn't recognize that for 20 years, that this is really what was burning inside of me. And I decided I need to spend the rest of my life doing that and making a mark and teaching people and sharing the beauty of these things with people. And that's what I try to do now. So intuition, I don't know if that really played a part.
Okay, that's fair enough. It definitely sounds like there is definitely an energy, though, that you invited into your life and a frequency. And so you just kind of stayed in that flow
Yeah.
constantly. That's okay. I mean, not everybody feels that way, but I like those gut feelings. I mean, you didn't have gut feelings when it was time to make a pivot or a change. I feel like that's almost a gut feeling, what you're saying, I want to make a mark. Like that's your, don't you
Yeah,
think that's a little bit of your intuition coming up like, this is what's best for me? I know what I need and what my soul really needs to, it needs to make a
in
mark.
that way, yes, because especially when you're 52 years old and you quit a job that's bringing in a great amount of cash to start with zero revenue. And
Scary.
you've got a family and a mortgage and all the stuff going on, and starting a whole new career in your 50s, let alone in such a niche that
Mhm.
is going to take something in order to have that become successful and be recognized. And honestly, guys, it was like scary AF. I mean, what really, I questioned whether or not I should be doing that so many times.
Mhm.
But here's the gut feeling: is I figured, if I'm going to do it now. And if I'm that passionate about it, then I should be able to. You hear people say all the time, if you're passionate about it, then you'll succeed at it and the money will follow. Uh,
Mhm.
it
See,
was
that's
fantastic.
your intuition, though, knowing just that sense of knowing I'm gonna be able to do this, because I think you had that, right,
I
in your
didn't doubt that I could do it, and that's part of, I think, what's enabled me to do it is that when I commit to something, I'm in it big time.
Yeah, I think that's the key to success too, right, is
Mm.
like you're saying, you believe in yourself 100% and you just keep finding a way because you are gonna keep having roadblocks pop up as you're going along your journey, right? Like, but
Well,
they're meant to happen. Like, they're meant to get you where you wanna go. If you want this extreme success, you can't think you're just gonna pop off and it's gonna be smooth sailing. All those little pivots, or there's difficult bumps in the road are happening so that you can take some time to step back and reflect and grow and be better than ever and keep moving forward.
reorganize, reshape, and it happens with relationships too. It's nobody has a rosy road the entire way through. For sure. And then you've heard all the sayings, sometimes you got to fail to succeed. I've made a ton of mistakes, but one of the other things I've realized, whether it's trying to be a fine arts salesperson at 19 years old amidst people that are in their 50s or whatnot, they've been at their whole life, or all these other things, is that you can't compare yourself to the other people. There's a saying, our friend Jen, that always says, don't compare your chapter 2 to their chapter 20. And
Mhm.
that's actually a good way to wrap that up too. Yes, is that you can't look at the people that have done it and somehow think that, you're not there, and that you can't do it because they had a chapter 2 as well. Everybody started at some point. But the minute, again, going back to what we first started talking about, the minute that you say you can't is when you start not doing it. So there really is, like, it sounds corny, but this whole mindset thing is like so real. And I honestly had never been into reading books about mindset or this or that, or following gurus or any of that sort of stuff, other than like one book that I read actually when I was a teenager that was really important, called The Greatest Salesman in the Earth. And Illusions by Richard Bach's another one. But outside of those, I really have come to realize that, yeah, your mind is so powerful. So mindset's everything with these sort of things. And, you're an expert in intuition. If you can control your mindset and the way you perceive events and then pull your intuition into it, you probably got a pretty winning formula.
Mm, I do.
You can all learn from that.
And that's what I'm doing with the channel is I intuitively lean into these conversations
Yeah.
and what I think the viewers need. But that is probably my strongest gift though, is working with people and helping them believe in themselves because I can very intuitively feel into how they're feeling and what's blocking them and what needs to happen for them to shift and move forward in their life. But I'm trying to do this on a larger scale by just bringing these stories to people and helping people feel inspired to step forward in their lives.
Yeah, stories are great because they inspire, they produce action in people. And the more stories you tell, somebody's going to pick up on one part of one or another. There may be somebody after watching this that has picked up on something that I've talked about that will inspire them as well. But I think the lesson that you can learn from a lot of these stories is that if one person can do it, anybody can do it. And it's really, honestly, it's our beliefs that limit us.
Mhm. Because we're all just human. There's nothing different
Yeah,
from
we all have
you and
24
I.
hours in the day, guys. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Thank you so much for coming on. Matt, do you have any other stories before we wrap this up that you think would be valuable?
Oh, can I say something about your channel? Because I've been watching your videos and
You're sweet.
it's in it, and yourself. So, you were dead for 26 seconds, right? You've had guests on that have had Larry with a heart attack, or Sam, whose dad committed suicide, or somebody in a car wreck.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think, and I see people like this all the time that have this major life event happen, and then they realize all this stuff that you and I were just talking about, how they can really control their life to a good degree. And it's almost like a rebirth, a moment where they realize, I'm just going to go for it and do the thing, right? Because I can.
Do.
But you don't have to wait for one of those events to happen. And
Yeah.
knock on wood, I haven't had any traumatic events or that I can think of happen. But you can adopt the mindset that any one of these people that you interview
Yes.
have as a result of a traumatic event or something happening in life. Why not adopt it now? And I
Exactly.
can learn, and we can all learn from these stories, of these people. What I take most out of a lot of your channel from what I've seen some of these people is that I can have the same mindset they have without the heart attack.
Yes. Yeah. You make a very good point about control. That's what a lot of us learn. Like our lives are so in control and out of our control. Like there's pieces we can control, which is our mindset, but then everything else is out of our control, right? I mean, we have free will, but we also have this like higher power, God given, whatever you want to call it, path that is meant for us. And so that's kind of what I talk about a lot too, though, is like leaning into that path that we are meant to be living by letting go of the control as well. It's a weird thing, right? Yeah, we can control our mindset and we can control our choices and the things that we do. But I think the best way to put this is lean into your intuition, even though you're saying you don't have it. Kidding.
Maybe I do, but I'm just not recognizing.
You're not right. Yeah, I bet you will later. You're like, you know what, Andrew?
You're right. Yeah.
We can lean into our intuition and take control in that way and follow it. And so there's control, but it's also intuitive guidance. So it's not completely out of control, right? We get choices every day. Am I going to wake up and am I going to exercise or not exercise? Take control of your life, right? Make the choices that benefit you, but also make the choices that feel in alignment to the path that you want. But you're absolutely right with all those stories too. The point is not to watch them and think, "Oh my gosh, wow, I should just be grateful because none of that has happened to me." It's not about that. It's about, yes, we went through all these really difficult things and then we had this massive wake up and this is what we realized. And so all the things that we realized and share are things that you can go ahead and take away without having to live through these traumatic experiences. So you said that very well. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know that the people that you've invited on and other people that tell their stories, that's why they're telling their story. They're telling it because they want you to realize that you don't have to wait for that to happen to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of us, the really, really hard stuff that we've been through, it was really hard and it was really painful. And I don't want that for anybody. And so that's why I am so passionate about sharing this. It's to either help people not ever get to that place or get them out of that place and have faith that they can get out of that place.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to put a challenge out to whoever's watching still. I just thought of this and I gave a speech last week. And this is the way I ended it. It was great because people were going on Facebook and they were like giving me the story of how they did this. Challenge is, I remember talking about just asking. Think of something that you've been wanting to ask of somebody that's going to help you down that path that you determined for yourself that you think is the right path. You've thought about asking but you haven't, and I want everybody just to ask. 24 hours between now and 24 hours from now, go out and do the ask, and then let us know what happens, because it's amazing the magic that can happen if you just start to ask those things,
Ugh, that gives me chills. I love that. That is
including you, Andrew.
okay. On it. 24 hours. All right. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome because that is what you talked about too, right? Just not having that fear and just ask, just do it. So that's a great challenge.
And
Thank
if
you.
you happen to be watching this on YouTube, then if you have a question about pearls, it's my
Yeah.
love. My passion, as you guys know, is we ask it and I'll answer it. It could be, are my grandma's pearls real? Or, whatever. There's a lot of misconceptions and people that I realize want to know about pearls. And I love sharing educational knowledge with you. So I'm going to be looking in there and seeing if I can answer stuff for you all.
And where else can people find you? Other
My
than the
name,
comment?
MattHarrisDesigns.com is a great place. And then on YouTube is Matt Harris Pearls. And we just teach people about pearls all day long on YouTube. And it's really great if you want to geek out about history and kings and queens wearing pearls or how they're made or you name it. They're really the most interesting, important, and influential gems the world's ever known. Far better and more important than diamonds.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing
Thanks,
all your wisdom.
Thanks for listening, everybody.